Um, you are aware that about 2 years ago, we, the government of India, started talking very clearly about what ought to be the principles and foundational elements around policy making for the today and the tomorrow of technology. And we had talked about openness, safety and trust and accountability. And we have argued long as government of India and as India that innovation must not get so far ahead of regulation, or regulation should not fall so far behind innovation, that the issue of safety and trust on the internet and safety and trust of the digital nagriks then gets given a go by, and then we have problems as we have seen in many areas of social media and cybercrime, etc., etc. So in that context, we have, as when India took over the GPA presidency last year, I had laid out that the same principles apply for AI as well. That has been the position of the government of India on for AI as well, and so it is good that the first AI safety summit that was held in UK at Bletchley Park, which is, as you know, is a very historical place where the German transmissions were broken. The code was broken by the British Army, led by the legendary Alan Turing. So that is a good venue for this conversation about AI, in particular, safety of AI. So 28 countries attended, and again, consistent with what our position as Government of India has been, and especially Narendra Modi ji's view, that the future of tech ought to be scripted, shaped, architected by countries coming together, working together, and, um, and framing what ought to be the regulations, or what would be the outcomes of the future of tech. So I think in that sense, the AI Safety Summit held in UK met two broad criteria. One, that it is a group of countries along with civil society, along with researchers and academics sitting down and talking about the future of AI on one hand. On the second hand, talking about the safety and the risks posed by AI, and as a reciprocal, as a corollary, talking about safety and trust and about AI. So the conversations were 2 days, as you have probably followed on social media, and it ended broadly with the Bletchley Declaration, which you may have already read, which reinforces the need to address the risks and the need to create safety and trust around AI. And I can certainly share with you that in my closing remarks, I spoke at the plenary and I spoke at the closing as well. We have talked about the need to have safe and trusted AI platforms, distinguished and distinguishable from unsafe and untrusted platforms. Number two, we have proposed, and that this will be certainly a theme in the GPA and the India AI Summit, that AI should not be demonized. AI represents for us in India a big opportunity, as it does for the rest of the world. And therefore, it should not be demonized to a point that we regulate it out of existence and innovation. So therefore, we should talk about safety and trust. We should talk about how do we determine safety and trust, and who will determine safety and trust. Number three, how do we decide the 4 different types of harms that come out of AI, which is the workforce disruption, the privacy issues. There are four broad categories of harms that I've laid out, which is, one is the disruption on the existing workforce by AI. The number two is the impact on privacy of the individual by AI. Number three, harms which are non-criminal, but there is a different category of harms. And then there is a fourth category, which is the weaponization of AI and criminalization of AI. So I have laid out that safety and trust there ought to be a global framework. There ought to be a global understanding, or at least agreement broadly, on how the safety and trust will be determined. 3, that these are the broad harms of AI that should be regulated for. And the fourth point that I have laid out for the consideration of all these countries and their top leaders was that what do we do? The world and the countries must have a globally coordinated response to the bad actors who may create unsafe models, untrusted models that may exist on the dark internet, that can be misused, that can be weaponized. So these are the 4 questions that I have laid in the closing, and I have invited every one of those countries to participate in the GPA summit on the 12th, 13th, and 14th of December, which will be preceded by the India AI summit. And one of the focus areas of the GPA summit will be a discussion of these 4 questions, the various different regulations that are developing the EU AI Act, the G7 Code of Conduct for AI, the President Biden's executive notification about AI, which is a big, huge document. So these 3 or 4, along with our own Digital India Act and our own approach to regulating emerging technologies, will also find a focus in the GPA and the India AI Summit. So this is broadly what it is. So after the UK Bletchley Park AI Safety Summit, which will be followed by the India Chairmanship, under India's chairmanship, the GPA in December. By April, May, there will be another AI Safety Summit held in Korea, by which time, the next 6 to 8 months' time, I think we are all hoping and expectation is that we will work in an urgent manner, and by the Korea AI Safety Summit, for sure, we will have the global framework in place, which will be first discussed in the New Delhi GPA summit. So this is broadly what it is. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take those questions.